and Napetet. Speaking during the distribution of relief food to flood victims, Erus said they have devised special strategies to ensure the victims benefit at shelter camps. Additionally, the Red Cross has initiated an exercise to relocate flood victims from high-risk areas to safer places.
Mvua hapa imenyesha kuanzia saa 11 asubuhi mpaka saa 5. Karibu watoto wadogo bebwe. Hakuna leo watoto kulala kwa nyumba. Watoto tunaweka au sijui juu ya mabati, nafikiri kama itawezekana.
Hofu ya kuleta na maji kama ni maugonjwa. Hiyo kolera itatushika na tuko na watoto wadogo.
Kuanzia jana kitu kama saa 11 mvua imenyesha mingi. Imeleta madhara hapa. Kwa sababu maji imejaa kila kona. Imejaa mpaka nyumba ndani. Wakati nimejaribu kutoa maji, nimekosa mahali ya kutoa maji, sababu nyumba iko chini na barabara iko juu.
Ingine ningependa kuambia serikali wasaidie county, wasaidie Red Cross, kwa sababu kila mtu ameadhirika saa hii. Hata sisi wote tunaama. Mahali pa kwenda hatuelewi, Mungu ndiye anajua mahali tutaenda. Kwa sababu hata milima inaporomoka. Ni Mungu mwenyewe atajua mahali sisi tutaenda. Lakini watupee chakula kabla Mungu hajajua mahali sisi tutaenda, tupewe chakula.
If the rain continue as per the meteorological department warning us, we may lose a lot of life, we can lose a lot of livestock, and we can lose property for community.
My name is Dr. John Erus, Deputy Governor, Turkana County Government. We are here to provide food items to 196 families that had to move to safer grounds because of the water volume from Kawalase River. This is in response to Governor's intentional declaration to activate all disaster response mechanisms of the entire county government. So from the onset of the rains, Governor has directed that Directorate of Public Administration and Disaster Management, in collaboration with both the county and national government structures on the ground, and our development partners, which is Kenya Red Cross Society, with the guidance of the Meteorological Department and NDMA, and all the institutions that are relevant in determining the extent of damage or displaced persons, ensured that timely report and adequate response is put in place. Our data, which we keep on updating, does indicate that across all the 7-8 sub-counties, 1,415 households have been affected by the flash floods and swelling of rivers, including the surges on Lake Turkana.
The government has announced that 45,000 more passports that are the last batch of 700,000 backlog of passports are now out and are ready for collection. According to Interior Cabinet Secretary Professor Kithure Kindiki, the government has already put in place measures for the expedition of the collection of the passports. Victor Nyaga with more.
The government is currently in the process of transforming the service delivery in relation to the insurance of the Kenyan passports, as well as creating efficiency in the delivery of critical citizen services, notably identity documents, birth certificates, passports, as well as management of foreign nationals in Kenya. Review is ongoing of the Kenyan Citizenship and Immigrations Act and regulations thereunder, the Kenyan Citizens and Foreign Nationals Management Service Act, the Security Laws Amendment Act, the Counter-Traffic in Persons Act, the Refugee Act, the Registration of Persons Act, the Births and Deaths Registration Act, and other relevant laws to consolidate and actualize the reform agenda. This morning at Nyayo House, there was an interactive tour of various service delivery points relating to the application, production, and collection of the Kenyan passports. Gratified by the applicants' feedback of improved service delivery experiences and customer relations, alongside gratitude to the staff from various agencies involved in the process. Principal Secretary of the State Department of Immigration and Citizen Services, Professor Julius Bitok, and other senior officials were present.
All right, to the newspapers. I will begin with the Standard. In eye of a storm. That is the headline this morning. In eye of a storm, President William Ruto has announced compensation for Kenyans affected by the floods. Although the money will assuage the pain inflicted on families, the losses are too high to bear. That is a story that is on page 2, 3, 4 of the Standard newspaper this morning. Now that picture on top of the page tells the story where residents try to save their belongings after River Perkera broke its banks in Marigat, Baringo County. Now various rivers across the country have actually burst their banks, subsequently flooding into people's homes, displacing thousands and taking the lives of. President William Ruto has announced a 10,000 compensation for each of the 40,000 affected families. And he says, and I quote, proper planning must include the provision of food, blankets, money, and mattresses to residents. The 40,000 the 40,000 displaced families will be given 10,000 shillings each per household. That is meant to help, with their recovery back to normal. The Kenya Human Rights Commission says, indeed, forced evictions of this nature are prohibited in all circumstances for grossly violating fundamental rights and freedoms. And then Bernard Ndungu, one parent, says, no parent would ever want to bury his children. No parent can imagine such a double tragedy. I am at pains to explain to my daughters what transpired. Now, if I kick it off with page 2 of the Standard, it speaks of flood evictions. Their next move. Flood evictions spark outrage as residents mar their next move. Those displaced say they should have been given more time to move out, and activists say the move is a violation of their human rights. Now, in numbers, so far 228 people have died due to the floods. And, Nairobi residents living on riparian land have expressed their dismay over the government's directive to vacate the area without providing an alternative relocation site. At the moment, majority of them are actually out in the cold. Some are being housed by other neighbors. Others are being housed in schools, as well as halls and shelters in various counties. But is that enough? Because 40,000 people being displaced is a huge number, and trying to find a relocation site for them perhaps is one of the logistical nightmares for the government. However, the president has announced a 10,000 shillings stipend per family, and he says this will go a long way in helping them recovery. Now, this comes despite the government's assertion that it is facilitating logistical support, alternative accommodation, and essential supplies to those affected. Questions, that now need to be asked is, has the government recorded the number of people? Do they have records of who has been displaced and where exactly they were living before? Where are they living now? If it's a family of how many people? And there's some families, it's 5 members, the father, mother, and children. There's a family that perhaps is just got a lesser number. There's a family that has got even a higher number. So some of these records need to have been taken by the government, and that will help in, are finding shelters for them, and even in terms of food and supplies, because what you give a family of 1 is not what you give a family of 10 people. And so there's so many logistical nightmares for the government, and it is showing, and it is proving a headache. Now, the Kenya Human Rights Commission has described the of houses on land as injustice targeting the poor. Now, even before the government's deadline elapsed and without sufficient notice or proper consultation, bulldozers descended on the Mukuru, Kwa Ruben and Kiamaiko areas in Nairobi in a case of forced and arbitrary eviction that left thousands of locals homeless. Yet, more affluent neighborhoods that flooded even more and sat on riparian lands were left untouched, highlighting a selective, punitive and discriminatory expedition. This is a statement by the Kenya Human Rights Commission. The commission stated that the evictions contravene the Constitution, the United Nations guiding principles on evictions, and the United Nations assistance and protection of internally displaced persons, and the latest cabinet's decision to humanely relocate evacuated families. So flood evictions spark outrage as residents smile their next move. On page 3, it speaks of my Mahiu floods snatched my beloved son from my hands. Now, the story of a father who lost 2 children in the Mai Mahiu tragedy, 2 sons to be precise. And the raging Mai Mahiu floods snatched a child from the safety of his father's hands in Ruiru village. Bernard Ndungu painfully recounted how in a split of a second, the floods swept away Rowan Mwangi, who is a 5-year-old. Ndugu said he and his sons, Mwangi and Maxwell Kamau, were sleeping in their 5-roomed house when the disaster struck. His wife and 2 daughters were away in Limuru. Now, he also says the sudden raging floods brought down the permanent house, and a huge boulder hit him before the water snatched away the boy who was on his hands. He was tightly holding Mwangi, trying to save him, but unfortunately he could not. And this is just one of the many. There was a story of one woman who had lost 8 family members. And so it is only a pain that you can only imagine, and empathetically, put a lot of considerations to the families that have lost their loved ones in this tragedy. Also in Western Kenya, a doctor was killed by floods in Kakamega as governors call for help. A 72-year-old psychiatrist, Ronald Musume, lost his life after raging waters of the Luang'ombe stream swept him away as he attempted to cross the stream to his home in Shinyalu in Kakamega town. And finally, on page 4, it speaks of Nairobi flood victims to get 10,000 shillings per family. I've spoken about that earlier on. We saw that report by Dr. Nganyi when he visited, or rather when President William Ruto visited Mathare on Monday. Also, families marooned by floods as motorists spend hours on roads. The roads are impassable, and unfortunately, the floods have revealed the situation with our roads in the country. Various roads have been affected, others have been swept away, others have been destroyed, others still now are still flooded with water, and those with cars literally will tell you the story about how it's a big headache just trying to go through the roads every single day. And so that is the headline on the Standard: in eye of a storm. Will we come out of it eventually? Now, White House team wants city audited. The Senate County Public Accounts Committee has directed the Office of the Auditor General to table reports of expenditure of 43 billion shillings by the Nairobi Metropolitan Services while it managed Nairobi County. After doctors, nurses too issue strike notice, the Secretary General says it's given a 1-week ultimatum to the SRC, the Salaries and Remunerations Commission, to adhere to the 2017 CBA agreement, failure to which they will be on street as well. So a 1-week ultimatum, they issued that statement on Sunday. So 1 week, that will be Sunday. And if by Sunday the SRC does not respond, then come Monday, we're expecting that these nurses will join the doctors on strike. Now let's go to the Daily Nation newspaper. Raila's dilemma in race for top AU job. Raila's dilemma in race for top AU job. Hard choices. Azimio leader Raila Odinga is in a difficult position in as far as his quest for the post of the African Union Commission chairperson is concerned, whether to tone down his attacks on President William Ruto or go hard on Kenya Kwanza's failures and risk his chance. Odinga is an unfamiliar territory, and in other words, a catch situation. So that is a story that is on page 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation this morning, that speaks of Raila's AU job quest hits turbulence locally and regionally. Now, politics of it, Somalia, which have also fronted their candidates for the African Union Commission post, have advanced their campaigns to lead the regional body. Azimio's leader direct attack on how Ruto's administration is tackling the current flood crisis has raised a storm, but state stands by his candidature. Now, the Azimio leader Raila Odinga's bid for the chairmanship of the African Union Commission, AUC, seems to be encountering multiple fronts. Now, his opposition is intensifying both domestically due to his firm stance against the government and regionally, with other countries working to thwart his ambitions. This situation puts him in a precarious position as he navigates the complexities of his candidacy. Now, I will tell you what the big problem really is. One, this is a candidature that is supported by President William Ruto, or at least by the government. And so it's a dangerous situation for him to try and attack Kenya Kwanza's administration, and particularly in response to how they're responding to the flooding situation in the country. And two, on the other hand, does he go slow on the attacks and try to balance it with what he hopes will be a big support and a boost for his AUC campaign. Now, Somalia and Djibouti, which are also partner African countries, have also fronted their own candidates to the African Union Commission. And, Somalia and Kenya really do not have the best of relationships, particularly if you look at the history, one of the territorial, border where we were fighting for part of the Indian Ocean. And also, the security issues that have also come up more often than not. And so Somalia and Djibouti have fronted their candidates for the AUC post, and they have advanced their campaigns to lead the regional body. Now, Somalia last week claimed to have received the backing of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, which has 27 African countries, including Djibouti, but was forced to withdraw its statement, pointing to differences in the organization. Diplomatic experts say the Organization of Islamic Cooperation has members belonging to various blocs that will definitely not endorse one candidate, but agree that they should do. Then Odinga will have an uphill task to his quest. Now, remember this, unlike presidential campaigns, this is a continental campaign. So basically he has to go to various countries and literally speak to the heads of state of those countries to ensure that he gets that backing ahead of the elections, which come in 2025 February. So that is the headline. Pardon me, this is the Star, but that is the headline on the Daily Nation. Raila's dilemma in race for top AU job. Also, top of the page, Ruto sets aside 1 billion shillings to rebuild schools. President William Ruto said the money will facilitate the reconstruction of schools to enable all children to resume learning without delay once schools officially reopen. The president also promised cash assistance for displaced households in Nairobi. So that is the headline on top of the page of the Daily Nation. As well, it includes court gives state and doctors 48 hours to reach a deal on strike, as well as EACC to hold on to 62 million shillings cash seized in Yatani's graft probe. Then finally, to the Star newspaper, what is now on this screen, Raila steps up AUC top job campaigns. Raila steps up AUC top job campaigns. Now, Charm Offensive, his team to reach out to more than 20 ambassadors this month, and international players, including Obasanjo, involved in wooing their regions in Raila's favor. So that is a story that is on page 7 of the Star newspaper this morning. that speaks of Raila steps up AUC top job campaigns, and the chairman campaigns month to elections. His team is expected to reach out to about at least 20 ambassadors this month, and the opposition chief has a campaign team which is set to be part of his strategy of wooing countries into voting for him. Former Kenyan ambassador to the US, Elkanah Odembo, who is leading Raila's campaign team, said they will start with a visit to Eritrea's ambassador resident to put a case for Raila's candidacy. Now, big international players, including former Nigerian President Olusegun Obasanjo, are also involved in wooing the region in Raila's favor. The Azimio leader has extended his net to Western powers, as evidenced by recent engagements he has had with European envoys. Superpowers, including the Western nation, are always keen to influence who becomes the AU chairperson. Some of the diplomats Raila has hosted at his current residence in the last month include Norwegian Ambassador Gunnar Andreas Holm, Australian High Commissioner Jenny Darin, and United Kingdom High Commissioner Neil Wigan. The former Prime Minister separately met diplomats at his residence. Also, the Star talks about early warning, late response to flooding been ongoing for years, says Auditor General. And this is an issue of early warning given about forthcoming, whether rainfall or drought, and then the late response that comes to it. And the auditor says this is normal and has been ongoing for years. Now, in fact, Auditor General Nancy Gathungu revealed in March 2023 that Kenya's flood response and recovery were lacking. And she further went on to note that a lack of early action, both from government actors and the community, is a big reverse to how the floods are dealt with. And Kenya has always been caught napping in dealing with both drought and floods. Gathungu's audit covered 5 years from July 2017 to 2022. It focused on the operations of the State Department for Internal Security and National Administration, and it reveals just how we are always lacking in how we respond to disasters in the country. Now, that is the headline on the Star newspaper as well. Why Sakaja is under siege ahead of 2027 polls. Is it politics or is it failure? Now, Nairobi Governor Johnson Sakaja has been caught up in the 2027 succession politics, or has he just failed as the city boss? Barely 2 years in office, Sakaja is trapped in endless controversies and fears criticism amid questions about his leadership style and his ability to run the complex capital. But the governor has dismissed the troubles as politically instigated. So that is the headline that is on the Star newspaper. Raila steps up AUC top job campaigns. The Daily Nation as well speaks about the campaigns, Raila's dilemma in race for the top AU job, even as the Standard speaks of in eye of a storm. Deluge of death. President William Ruto has announced compensation for Kenyans affected by floods. Although the money will assure the pain in inflicted families, the losses are just too high to bear. Those are the headlines on the newspapers. All right, so allow us to take a quick breather, but when we come back, we'll be getting into that conversation on physical violence on children and how do we protect our children, particularly now that they're still home with us, even as they'll be going back to school. How can we play our roles in protecting our kids? So that conversation returns in a bit. Stay with us.
Watching EBN TV, transforming your world. TV, transforming your world.
From Nairobi, Kenya, this is EBN TV.
Walisema mnywa maji kwa mkono mmoja,
kiu yake ipo pale pale, ndiposa tumekuletea wewe mtazamaji wetu
mkono mwingine ili kukata kiu yako na ari yako ya ufahamu.
Naam, ngoma imechezwa mtazamaji, basi hatuna budi kulisakata na kukuletea wewe ufahamu wa kaunti yako,
tukiangazia masuala ya siasa na uongozi,
jamii na itikadi,
maendeleo na changamoto katika kaunti yako. Ungana nami Belinda William,
nami Emmanuel Marwa
kwenye makala ya Gatuzi Langu kila siku ya Jumatatu saa 5:30 hadi saa 6:30.
You are watching EBN. You are watching EBN TV, transforming your world.
Welcome to the heart of agriculture, where the journey of maize begins, but it doesn't end there. It's just the beginning of a story that touches lives, sustains communities, and fuels dreams. At Nelco Maize Millers, we understand the significance of maize in our lives. It's more than just a crop. It's a staple, a tradition, and a source of livelihood for millions. Introducing Sherehe and Cheka Maize Meal. Elevate your meals with our premium grade 1 sifted maize meal. Exclusively from Nelco Millers. Sherehe Maize Meal. Tusherehekee pamoja.
You are watching EBN TV, transforming your world.
The country, across the world, from parents to guardians and even young people themselves, as we are facing growing statistics around this particular issue. So before I introduce my guest in studio very quickly, I'd like to bring you up to speed on some of the stats that have been reported in Kenya. Now this is statistics from the Kenya Violence Against Children survey that found 49% of girls and 48% of boys aged between 13 to 17 years had experienced physical violence, and 11% of girls and 4% of boys indicated that they had experienced sexual violence. Now 11% is no small feat. It's such a big number that needs to be talked about more enough, and what policies are there in place to ensure that our children are safe when we go to work, we leave them at home, even as we send them to school, are they safe wherever they are? So I'd love us to get that conversation started. Let me introduce my guest in studio this morning who have joined me. In my immediate right, I'm joined by Michael Mwangi, who's a child protection officer from the Kenya Works organization. Thank you for your company this morning.
Welcome.
And just next to him is Caroline Gitao, a social worker as well, and a program coordinator working with the Kenya Works organization. Thank you for your company this morning. Good to have you again.
Thank you.
Now, you know, the numbers really just tell the story, because we're looking at about 49% average of both males and females, and those are the young boys and girls that are experiencing physical violence, or at least have had violence meted against them. But I'd love us to get started with just defining what this gender-based violence is, because a lot of people may see a very thin line between what is just punishment, corporal punishment, and what physical violence is, as well as sexual advances that they might face. So Michael, will perhaps start with you by just let us understand what is GBV, what is violence against children.
Okay, when we say the child is abused, is when anything which is being done by an individual, a process, or an institution, either a process or an institution that fail or do anything that harm the growth and development of the child. That is when we say if it is done or fail to be done, the child is being abused.
Yeah.
So it's about either something omitted or done, because it is not necessary that something have been done, we say the child has been abused. When something is not also being done, we say also the child is abused.
Oh really? Not being done as well?
Yes.
Perhaps you could get deeper into that, because what we tend to think is just what has been done already. What is it that has, what do you mean when you say something that has not been done? Maybe for the cases, maybe we can talk about a neglect. When a child is neglected, maybe something has failed to be done. A provision, maybe a basic provision has not been met. Yeah.
It is a neglect and it is an abuse. Yes.
Caroline, this goes hand in hand with how do we protect the child, whether through something that is being done or something that is not being done. So on child protection, what are some of the things that, really define what child protection is? Is it just about a parent that comes and says, do not touch my child, do not do this? Is that what child protection is, or there's more to it?
Child protection, it's broad. Well, child protection also covers human rights, because children are human beings.
Yes.
So it's offering and ensuring they are all getting the human rights, and ensuring that a child development is taking place as it is ought to go, so that the child gets to adulthood with the right development, through the right development stages, not missing any of them, and also being able to meet the basic needs of this child.
Right.
Yeah.
As a social worker, you work closely with communities. Is this a conversation that is being had on the ground? Are people talking about this more often, or is it something that there's no more sensitization on?
According to what I know on the ground, it's not really something that has been adopted as it should be. It's a process still that is ongoing. Many communities are overlooking the issue to do with child protection, and thinking that it is just a normal thing. But I think there is more to it than just the basic things that we think that is the child protection, because it's more of legal aspect as well, and also the family aspect of what, as parents, as the people around this child, need to offer these children.
Right.
So it's not yet well adopted as it should be.
Now, Michael, you're a child protection officer.
Yes.
Whose responsibility is it to identify whether or not there's violence that is being meted on a child, or a child has been neglected? Whose responsibility is that?
Any person who is mature, a grown-up person, have a responsibility to take care of our children, whether you are a primary caregiver or a secondary caregiver. When we talk about a primary caregiver, we talk about those people who have responsibility of care and control over the child, maybe a parent or a guardian. Then there is other people who have responsibility to see to it that the child is not abused. That is those people who we say they are secondary caregivers, maybe a teacher, a nurse, a doctor, any other person who interact with the child. They are obliged to take to make sure the child is not abused. Yes.
How do they identify that? Because I might, be living in a very different place from where a child is. How do I identify that this child is not emotionally okay, is not physically okay? How do I identify that as a mature person?
Okay, there is different type of abuses. When we talk about physical abuse, it is something that you can see. Maybe a child have been beaten. You can see maybe swearing, or there is a cut, or someone have decided just to bite a child.
Yeah.
There is a mark that you can able to identify. Then when it comes to psychological abuses, you'll see the child will start maybe behaving differently because that child have been abused emotionally. Maybe in terms of where the child is neglected, you will notice child is neglected because of maybe he's not going to school. You can able to tell that my neighbor is not taking the child to school, because it's something that you can really able to see. Yeah.
Caroline, after somebody has noted all the sort of indicators that Mycon has been able to mention, what is the first step that they need to make? Is it confronting the guardian or the parent, or do they just need to find an alternative solution? So what are the steps to sort of facing this issue?
All right, when one notices there is a violation, especially on children, one thing you have to put in mind is the best interest of the child, so that whatever action you're going to take will not add violation to this child or put this child's life at risk. So first, even if it means like you need to rescue the child first from any kind of violation, then that should be the action to take. If it means to take this child first to the police station, let the child be placed in a place where he or she is safe and secure. As you proceed to report any violator against this child, to be taken action. That is how it should be. So first of all, whatever action that is going to be taken by an adult or whoever is going to rescue this child, need to put in mind that best interest of the child first.
Now, on a day-to-day basis, Michael, how would you say the violence is, or some of the common, I'd say, prevalence of violence amongst young boys and girls? What is a similar scenario that you've been able to see across the two genders?
Okay, it differ from different communities. You go to different communities, you find this fight is more predominant in a certain area. Where you go to other area, a different kind of or a form of an abuse it's happening there. There is a places you go and you find the community are practicing issue to do with early marriage and FGM. There is other community, when you go there, they don't practice the same. But you will find they do other things like neglect, physical abuse, and it is rampant everywhere. There is a lot of cases of both gender being abused. With boys, you will find there is a lot of cases to do with sodomy nowadays. With girls, there is a lot of cases to do with early marriage, even without necessarily having gone through FGM. There is a lot of cases on issue to do with early marriage. Another thing that also is rampant today is abuse through using the social media, using pornography. Children are really being exposed to pornography, and it is something that is quite worrying for me.
Right. Now, you've mentioned social media, and we'll come back to that because I'd love us to stick to that a bit more. But you've also talked about communities aspect, and from what you've been able to mention or to explain, it's a community problem to some point, because you go to this community, this is what is happening on the ground. You go to the other community, this is what they do. Does that make it harder in terms of just sensitizing about safeguarding the rights of a child?
Yeah, it makes it harder because it borders the issue to do with rules. Our law does, our rule says, and sometimes our law does not. When we talk about what the law says, and we want to discuss it with the community, sometimes it is not something that is appealing because this is a culture maybe they have practiced for quite long. So whenever you go to the community and you want to explain that this is not how to do it, you look a bit apprehensive. It is raw versus their culture. So with that one, it makes it a bit harder. But again, with us as Kenya Work, we try to decode our information in a way that the community can able to understand easily. Yeah.
You know, Caroline, as a social worker, you tend to work with communities a lot. You know, you'll meet, you know, community elders. You'd go to meet even the Nyumba Kumi elders as well. You know, just in a bit to be able to, as you said, decode information. But how much of a hindrance is a community issue to how you approach solving such an issue, you know, across the country?
So community sometimes can really, it depends from one community to the other, and also with how much they are taking up their cultural beliefs. So it can be really an issue sometimes addressing child protection in communities where they are practicing, say, issues to do with FGM and early marriages. This is something that is in their heartbeat, like something they have believed in, and it's also related or associated their spirituality. So going there and trying to sensitize the community against such, sometimes it's really a hindrance, because the community leaders themselves will put a block. Like, you'll not be able to move deeper or past them to the community without even the acceptability. So it forces us first to make them really understand the benefits of embracing the child protection matters, also dealing with GBV at different aspects of maybe physical, emotional violence, trying to show them how these beliefs, the barriers that are brought by their beliefs, are contributing to the gender-based violence in their communities, and also hindering the development also in their community. So it forces us to look at it on a different aspect. You don't go straight and directly to talking about the same. Sorry about that. It's okay. So we have to look at it at a very, very wise perspective by cutting or taking the message through another direction, but making sure you get to the goal.
Right. Yeah. You know, Michael, how do we get past community beliefs? Is Kenya on that path or that trajectory to do away with society beliefs and community beliefs?
I said that when you go through community and you want to talk them out, address them down, that whatever you are doing, it is wrong. Sometimes it has become a bit harder, because now it is like you are fighting what they have been knowing all along. The proper way or the approach that maybe I would advise is to go to the community with soft face and soft gloves. You don't go there to fight them. Don't go there and tell them, oh, you belong to devil because you are doing this and that. You go there, you embrace them, and then you have dialogue with the community. And slowly, by slowly, you will be able to get them informed. And eventually you find that you will have quite a chunk of number that will join you, and then you will create a bigger number as time goes by, and then you will have a team to work with, and then the information will trickle down to all members of that community. So we normally start with the gatekeepers of the community. You convince them. You don't fight them. You don't tell them you are evil people. You don't tell them this is what the law says, and if you don't do this, you're going to jail. You go there with the soft gloves. You start slowly but steady, and then when the readers get information, the information will trickle down to the other society, other members of the community, and you'll find eventually we can able to win this one.
Right. Now, aside from the community, there's also the close relatives, and it's unfortunate that we've seen cases that have been headlined on the media of persons close to a child, even the nuclear family members that have been, termed by the courts as culprits in some of the things that they've been able to do, whether it's defilement, even rape cases, even violence cases as well. In that kind of situation, because this is somebody close to the child, how do you deal with that? Because it's a parent, for lack of a better word. I'll begin with you, Caroline.
All right, it's very true that most cases of violence, especially to children, are caused by really close relatives. This is something that also gives us a hard time dealing with, because they will go back in their communities and try to solve these cases in the kangaroo courts, which is one thing that we are discouraging as organization Kenya Works being on the lead, because this does not give justice to this child, and it will traumatize the child for the rest of their life. So we will, in case we get to such a case happening and the case was solved through a kangaroo court, we handle it in a different way, because we will not take this as a relative, but we're going to handle it as a violator of human rights, and the child right in that case, which is even more serious. This child is someone who needs to be taken care of, because it is a child, is a minor, someone who cannot be able to defend themselves. So it doesn't matter whether it's a relative or not. This is a violator of human rights or a child's right, who should go through the legal way like any other violator.
Right. You know, Michael, I'm trying to imagine a scenario. You've gone to a community, you're doing a sensitization program, and then just amongst the people that you're addressing, perhaps there's a parent who's, you know, a culprit, for lack of a better word. You know, the numbers will tell the story of just how close family members met violence on children, whether it's physical or even emotional violence. But with parents, how do you approach that issue in a way that, you know, the child might not really understand what happened, but at the same time they still believe this is their parent?
Okay, more often than not, the people who abuse the child are extended family member, and those children who also what I will say is what I would call the family arrangement. Maybe you see the family household and the homestead. There are other people who are living within the same homestead, and they might be the people who are abusing the child. Normally it is not directly, it is not the parent, especially on cases like molestation. You'll find the child is being molested by a cousin, grandfather, or somebody who live within the same compound, and the children to that person, they become separate. What I would advise is that the parent should take full responsibilities instead of abdicating their duty and responsibility to other people, including those people they think they are very close to the child. You see, a parent might think that this is uncle of the child, this is the grandfather, or this is a step brother of the child. Most of those are the people who will abuse the child. So we normally advocate that the parent, now those people who have primary role to take care of the child, and they should not overtrust.
Right.
Because the whole issue is go with that they overtrust. They trust other people.
So they should take responsibility in raising their own children.
Yes.
On the same, we have had the cases which are not really a lot, with the children whose parents maybe planning to marry them off, and in such cases, this child do not want to report the parent directly. So it's upon the people now who are going to rescue this child not to let the parent know that it is the child who have reported the child, the parent. So we really prioritize on maintaining the good relationship with the parent and the child as we try to address the issue.
Let's talk about social media, and this is a platform that is non-avoidable, for lack of a better word, because everyone has access to it. You're even seeing kids that are being told to go and download homework online. What is social media violence, Mwangi?
Most violent in social media is whereby our children are prone to see things like pornography through using the our phones. Maybe parents are letting off the guard. They are not guarded, so they let their children be with their phone. They do not follow up on what they are watching on those phones, and they end up being even manipulated by other people using the same device.
Caroline, when a parent says, I will not give my child a phone till they turn 18, have they solved the problem?
I don't think they have really solved the problem, but just a control. That is just control. But however, this child will not only access a phone by whatever the parent will give, whichever phone that the parent will give them. The only thing I think here we need to do is take control. Let our children know. Sometimes we, as parents, we need to know, yes, we are the champions. We stay at our position, but then let these children, let them understand why we are putting some measures to them. Let them understand the risks that come with the social media. For example, bullying, which can really affect a child's emotion, psychological being, and even the education-wise, or the education aspect of this child. So we have seen so many being bullied in the social media by being exposed to the social media, and somehow they are affected with that bullying psychologically, which also affect their well-being in other aspects of life. So let's just take control and also explain to our children, let them understand the process, why.
You know, when a parent wants to have that talk with a child, how should they have it? Because most may find it difficult to do so. Perhaps, you know, their own parents never had that kind of talk with them, and this is a modern parent. How should they have that talk in a way that, one, they're educating, informing their child, but at the same time as well protecting their child on, you know, what not to do on social media, what to do on social media?
Nowadays, children are getting information from a very early age, but it is better the child to be informed by a parent than another person outside there, because you as a parent, you will able to inform your child and able to tell him what he really need to hear. But when they go outside there, they will not get what they need to hear. They will get what they want to hear, and they will hear it from other people who are their peers, and maybe the people who are also trying to make them a prey. They have other ill motive. So it is better for the child to be told this and that by the parent instead of getting it from other people. Because if you don't speak about it, somebody else will speak about it. And maybe you don't know who will talk about it. Maybe it's that Boda rider around your press. And he might not talk about his positive role with good intention.
Is there an appropriate age to allow kids on social media?
There isn't any age you can say this is the age, because children have attained their milestone differently. There is children who will grasp things very quickly, other very slowly. So there is no certain age you can say this is the age. It all depends with their milestone.
Right.
And also I think with the content, the content at which you are exposing this child to. There's some content you can't expose to a really young child at very young age. So it depends, because also we have the advantages of social media. Let's not overlook on that. We have our children, most of them have learned a lot from social media, positive things. So we need to regulate the content at the age of these children, depending on the growth and development. Again, this talk to our children, it doesn't just occur overnight. We have to develop a talk with our children right from their very young age. As they grow up, they need to have this. We have to develop a good relationship with our children as parents, so that whatever we are talking to them, let them not see like we are commanding or preventing them from getting something. Let them already know that we have a good intention for them. We will do this intentionally for your good future.
Now, when all is said and done, there has to be a structure at the end of the day, or at least laws or rules and regulations that just govern when you're dealing with I'd say a minor, somebody that is below the age of 18, because even as a country we've got a constitution, basically the things that we need to follow. So Michael, I'm hoping you'll tell us about policies, child protection policies or laws that are there in place at the moment that just govern what to do when a minor is in this situation, how to deal with a minor, or at least things that are bad from being done to a minor?
Okay, there is a lot of rules that deal with matters children.
Yeah.
We have our constitution on the Bill of Rights. It talk about children. You cannot abort a child. You have right to be born. We have our what we call Children Act. It is like our Bible when we come to matter of children. It has a lot of do and don't when it comes to the child protection. We have other rules like anti-FGM rules. They talk about the same. There is succession laws that talk about the children, anti-trafficking laws. There is other treaties and declarations, international declaration about the children. So we have many rules. We can't go through them, but we have a lot of rules that guide us on matters child protection.
Yeah. How do adults access this kind of information?
Okay, there is people who will endeavor to search for information, but it rarely do happen. That is why Kenya Works, we have decided to go down to the community and inform them. So there is also other organizations that are doing the same. They are disparking the information. They go to the community. They try to tell them this is what the law says.
Yeah.
I think people are trying to inform the society about the law says, and equally the media. You see now, like we are here in the media, also media have been playing a very major role on educating the mass on the same.
Caroline, as a social worker, how do you decode these policies and information in a way that it is easier for people to grasp? It is easier for them to remember. Even in 10 years, they can still remember, oh, there's something Caroline said back then. How do you decode that information? Because we're having a problem in the country where, we're receiving a lot of things at the same time. There's so much information everywhere. So how do you decode that to be so specific in a way that people will be able to understand and they can be able to comprehend very fast?
Okay, I feel like every time laws are being developed, but implementation to some points, it's not really actualized. But however, I think the best way we can be able to decode this is right from the very young age. I still insist on that. In schools, let's educate our children. They are growing up. They'll grow up knowing all these things. So because when people get to adulthood, we get to have so many things surrounding us. People don't have even time to go through that constitution that you're talking about. Yes, we'll have so many forums, workshops being planned out by other organizations, but you see, we can't be able to reach out to each and every individual. Let's say with our Kenya Works community workshop, where we train on this child protection matters and gender-based violence, many people who've been able to be part of this have really benefited, and they're implementing it in their day-to-day lives, and also in other forums such as churches. You need to implement that also in churches, in schools, in women shamas, all those things. I think any forum, in chief barazas, let's try to educate our communities about what is happening, and especially to do with the laws. Yes.
Right, and you've mentioned about schools. Do we have a step to which where we'll have child policies that are put up in schools? Because our schools is where kids just go study during the day, go back home. Should there be a step to which we're having child policies? There's just a proper booklet or even a proper signage in school that addresses this?
Yeah, I feel like that is actually should be there in each and every school. Like, should have policies which are put even on just a board where you get in and you are able to read what policies are being implemented in this institution. Somewhere whereby a child should not be violated by a teacher. Like, first, let's start by educating our teachers. Yes, our teachers, they're the ones who are giving the learners the knowledge and the information, but they need to know what they are abiding to what laws are they abiding to. But for the kids also need to know what policies is protecting them. What are the policies protecting them? Because when they know that, knowledge is power, and they will stand for their rights.
Right. Michael, as a protection officer, what is the biggest hindrance to, say you have safeguarded the right of a child or you've protected this child? What is the biggest hindrance?
I think the biggest hindrance it is information itself. People are not informed. So most of the time you'll find even somebody who abused the child or violate right of a child, he do it without thinking he is committing any crime. They do not have information. It is until that person get apprehended that is when now it become an issue. And that is why we as Kenya Work, we are not waiting things to happen. We want to inform people so that at least with information we will go going to mitigate those things to happen. People are not having proper information again. You talk to parents and they will tell you, the Bible says that we need to use rod to kill the children. And they use it literally, and they want to interpret it as using the cane. That is what the Bible, it is because they are not informed. And to me, I think when they get information that there is no human being who should inflict pain to another human being, now they will look at it differently. They will embrace maybe what I will say discipline instead of punishment. So you find people are abusing children right and left, not because they really like it, but sometimes they don't even know that they are abusing. For example, in psychological abuse, you'll find somebody have been teasing a child, calling him a funny name. And maybe that name will have impact in that child because it's a psychological. But if you ask the parent, maybe to her or to him, it's a funny thing, it's a funny name. So it is because they are not informed. But if they get information, you see they will digress and now start doing what is right.
So as we wrap this conversation, ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about this period where kids have been home and they're set to reopen school. How much do you put as effort into this kind of period? You understand, they'll go back to school. You also, as Kenya Works, go to schools if and when you get the chance to talk to them. But this moment when kids are at home, how important is it?
This is a really important time for our parents to be with their children. Unfortunately, it's not happening because the 3 or 4 weeks you have with the kids, you send them back to schools for tuition to be with other people instead of being with us as parents. That is really dangerous. So as parents, let's take this opportunity we have with our children to create that relationship, to be close to them. Let us listen to them. Let's also make it a habit of listening instead of always telling them. Most of the time they are always on the other receiving end, listening to what we say. But if we can just give ourselves, as parents, sometimes we think we know it all, but our children nowadays know a lot, and it is now us to listen to them, guide them according to what they know, and also give them what we have. So this is a really crucial time that we need to take really important to us as parents, because especially children nowadays, they think time is really moving fast. And by the time you know it, they are adults and they are nowhere around you. So let us take this as a really crucial time to create that relationship and bonds.
I think also I can add and say, when children close school and go home, they go where they belong. The children doesn't belong to school. They belong to those homes. It is our duty as parents to make our homes as comfortable as possible. Let us listen to our children. They have a lot which they can tell nobody else except you as a parent. Listen to them, embrace them, affirm them, show them love. Home is only a place where you can get love. You can't get love in school. You can't get love from your teachers. Those children need love and affirmation from the parents. So these 4 weeks that the children are at home, they need to be embraced. They need to be told that it is okay, you will make it. This is not the time to bash the child and tell him you became numbers you what and you are silly, you are a cow. No, this is the time to tell them you are my child. I like you and you can make it.
Yeah.
So embrace them.
All right, so as we wrap this conversation, there's a question that has come in from Makori Benja, who says, this is an amazing topic. Child protection is key. It starts with in-house parenting. Ask the panelists their take about government's agenda to close children's homes by 2023. We've got that move to close, children's homes that were, a directive that was announced by the government. So what happens to these children? Are their rights being violated here?
Not really. I also tend to believe that any child who exists, he belongs somewhere. They have, if not parent, relative. And children home are not ideal place to bring up the children. They lose a lot when they are in those children homes. They lose their culture. They don't know where they belong. They don't know their people. So it is good that those children be brought up or be taken back to the community and society where they can be supported when they are living with their society. But again, the government, I don't think it is totally closing the children homes, because there is other kind of the children that will still remain in the home, especially those who are in conflict with law. Those children, maybe they are in court, there is court process and court have committed them. Remember, some children who are in children home were committed by the court. So you cannot go and remove those children who are committed by the court and take them to community, because maybe they were abused in that community. So yes, a big chunk of the children will be taken back, but there will be still some children who will remain within charitable institutions.
Caroline, perhaps your views on the children's home closure?
I feel it's really a good move, because we are taking back our children to learn their own culture, different, because we all different, come from different communities. So being taken back to where they belong, it's a good thing, but we also need the rescue centers need to remain, because we have cases that need to be addressed away from the people or the violators themselves, which sometimes tend to be their close relatives. So also I would like maybe to just say that as parents, as we maybe close this, let's remember that our kids are watching us. Let's be good role models, because they really watch us. They see what we do more than listen to what we say.
All right, so ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming in this morning to have this conversation around child violence and child protection. Michael Mwangi, a child protection officer working with the Kenya Works organization, and just next to him is Caroline Gitau, a social worker and a program coordinator at the Kenya Works. Thank you very much for making time this morning. Always a pleasure to have you in studio. So that is where we wrap this conversation up. In case you've got any questions, thoughts, comments throughout the day, keep the conversation going. All you have to do is SMS us, and if you'd love to get in touch with them, you can also inquire from us within the day, and we'll be able to help you out. So thank you for watching. This is Morning Live. I'm Cynthia Nanjala. Enjoy the rest of your programming.
Thank you.